Cuban authorities announced that the fire at the Matanzas supertanker base is under control. Officials continue to extinguish isolated outbreaks. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro provided an update on the situation sparked by heavy rains affecting the country. Anti-government protesters in Sierra Leone clashed with police in the streets of the capital on Wednesday, leaving 2 police dead and dozens injured as tensions over the rising cost of living turned deadly in the West African nation. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Cuban authorities declared the fire at the Matanzas supertanker base under control, despite the fact that there are still isolated outbreaks on the ground. During a press conference, the second chief of the National Fire Department of Cuba, Alexander Avalo Jorge, assured that although the fire has been brought under control, the work group is still carrying out firefighting tasks mainly at the supertanker base where small isolated outbreaks persist. The official pointed out that among the tasks being carried out is the cooling in the area to extinguish these still active outbreaks, which he said do not represent a risk of spreading. Alexander Avalo also thanked the Venezuelan and Mexican delegations for their help in the work to control the blaze.
At this moment we are working together, Cuba, Venezuela and Mexico. And I would like, well, because many colleagues ask me, well, this is an experience we have had and that we have never had. We had always worked on putting out fires alone. We had never had the possibility of sharing this beautiful work with our Mexican and Venezuelan brothers. And I want to tell them that it has been a very unique experience for both sides. We have shared many approaches, we have agreed on many points of view, and I would say that this looks like a team that has been working for many years. We would have to listen to each other on the radio, how we communicate. It doesn't seem that there are Cubans, Mexicans and Venezuelans. That is to say, that seems to be one working team.
This Wednesday at a press conference, the provincial health director of Matanzas, Luis Armando Wong, gave an assessment of the number of people affected by the fire at the supertanker base in Matanzas.
Up to this moment, we have attended 128 patients, 121 male and 7 female. We have given 108 medical discharges, 102 of them are male and 6 female. We still have up to this moment 1 deceased, the 60-year-old firefighter of the province of Cienfuegos. There are still 20 hospitalized patients, 19 of which are male, 1 female, and we have 5 patients in critical condition, the same number that we have reported during the last days. 1 of them unstable, 2 patients in serious condition, and 13 care patients.
The government of Barbados announced on national television the implementation of the reform of the National Insurance Fund. The briefing was presided over by Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley and counted with the participation of the actuary of the National Insurance Fund, Derek Osborne, the head of the private sector agency, Tricia Tennis, and a representative from a national movement of social workers, Richard Green, among others. Actuary of the National Insurance Fund, Derek Osborne, said the reform represents a comprehensive system of social protection aimed at reflecting Barbados' values system that responds to changing socioeconomic conditions and that satisfies customers' needs. On the other hand, Deputy Chairman of the National Insurance Board, Roland Adams, praised the bipartisan character of the scheme and said the program is to be implemented as a challenge of an aging population and a shrinking working sector, which contributes to the fund. In Panama, several sectors of the country demonstrated to denounce the non-compliance with the agreements reached at the single dialogue table. Members of Panamanian social and union organizations mobilized this Wednesday in several regions of the country. The Panama Teachers Association announced that they will hold protests in each educational center, and in the afternoon they gather in the vicinity of the National Assembly. The convening alliance indicated that the protests will continue because the business sector is resistant to put into practice what was agreed with the government in the talks. It is expected that the single dialogue table resumes this Thursday in PANAMA, addressing the issue of the Social Security Fund and the fight against corruption.
Today, we, the honest, humble, and hardworking people, are once again in the streets. We are in disagreement with the actions of the government. We're tired of being delayed at the dialogue table and bringing people who are not adequately trained to respond. We demand the presence of Nico Cortizo. He's the one who is there to ensure that the requests of the people who are in the streets today be met. Today, we...
Some of the areas where protests are taking place this Wednesday are the provinces of Chiriquí, San Isidro, Azuero, and Veraguas. According to local media, in those areas, the groups are blocking the main streets to demand attention to their demands. The demonstrators denounced the price increase of the basic food basket and the fuel and medicines price increase by businessmen, which they claim is not complying with the agreements. A wildfire burning through the forest of a national park in central Portugal raged for the fifth continuous day on Wednesday. Over 1,000 firefighters are on the ground to deal with the blaze, which started on Saturday in the council of Covilhã and has spread to some neighboring areas. A few dozen people were protectively evacuated on Tuesday afternoon after the fire crept closer to their homes. Around 350 vehicles and 10 aerial units are supporting the operation to contain the blaze. Portugal is facing a difficult summer with several heat waves and wildfires. The heat worsened Portugal's drought, with 45% of the mainland in extreme drought, the highest classification, and the rest in severe drought. The Portuguese Weather Service said July was the hottest since national records began in 1931. And firefighters were battling a wildfire in southwestern France on Wednesday in a region known for its pine forest that was ravaged by flames last month. More than 6,200 hectares have burned in the Gironde region and the neighboring lands in the latest wildfire to erupt in a European nation as the continent sweltered through a hot and dry summer. The blaze forced the evacuation of about 10,000 people and destroyed at least 17 houses. French Interior Minister Gerard Darmanin announced that more firefighters have been sent to the site in an effort to contain the fire. In total, more than 1,000 firefighters, 9 aircraft and 2 helicopters have been mobilized. The Gironde region was hit last month by major wildfires that forced the evacuation of more than 39,000 people. Let us take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back from the south. The president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, gave an assessment of the situation of the heavy rains affecting the Caribbean nation. The president informed that the rains affected the capital city of Caracas and the states of Aragua, Miranda, Barinas, Delta, Amacuro, Sucre, Cojedes, Merida, and Táchira. The head of state gave instructions to the governors to provide support to the families affected by this rainfall. Also, President Maduro pointed out the importance of facing the situation in order to give answers and help the citizens.
To all governors, mayors, all authorities, ministers, and the people's power, we have to be always watchful, on alert. When it pours like this, we've had an intense activity in this rainy period, very intense. We all know we're very good at this, to battle, to face the circumstances, and this people is not an orphan. This people is not alone. This people has someone who loves it. This people has someone who protects it, who supports it. A Bolivarian government for a long time to support and protect the people whenever it is necessary.
Colombia's Vice President Francia Marquez Mina received former President of Brazil Dilma Rousseff in a meeting where both leaders praised the struggles of Afro populations and the need to advance racial inclusion policies in the region. Talking about the event, Marquez wrote on her Twitter account, "In a meeting with the former President of Brazil Dilma Rousseff, I expressed to her the need to settle the historical debt with the black population in the region and move towards a policy of inclusion." On a second tweet, Colombia's Vice President Francia Marquez added, "The former President of Brazil, Dilma Rousseff, highlighted our ongoing struggle for dignity and search for equality in leadership spaces for women in Latin America and the Caribbean, calling it an example for the Brazilian people." In Peru, the single national center of the pheasant patrols of Peru and representatives of various indigenous communities mobilized to demand that the Congress and the presidency work on the implementation of the legislative agenda of the peoples.
Yes, look, the peasant patrols have arrived in the capital of the country on August the 9th and the 10th with a very extensive agenda for all the powers of the state. And in the afternoon, after so much struggle and insistence, we were finally able to sit down with the President of the Congress of the Republic, in which our agenda that we have delivered is that once and for all, they prioritize in scheduling and bring into the plenary the bills that we have presented months ago.
Santos Saavedra also highlighted the lack of political consensus to complete legislative procedures in favor of indigenous and farmer communities.
A ruling on 2 bills have been reached. The law on legal status and ownership of the territories. The other bills are still being examined. We have seen the political willingness that exists. However, in order to carry out the real proceedings that are required, and also to work on the political influence of the political parties' own benches that exist there.
In Paraguay, Jorge Carrey provided an updated report on the health of Senator Fernando Lugo after a more thorough study was carried out on the senator's brain injury.
We have found an area of bleeding, mostly bleeding. We're going to try to correct that bleeding now. We're going to perform a procedure, a study, that we're going to insert through a blood vessel. And we're going to try to contain the bleeding that is occurring as a result of the lesion that he has. In principle, that lesion has not grown in a significant way that at this moment is life-threatening, but that lesion has undoubtedly had a slight expansion compared to this morning.
Brazil's Ministry of Health declared the highest level of emergency due to the increase of monkeypox cases in the country. Health authorities said that 2,293 cases have been reported in the nation, while other 362 people are suspected of having the disease. According to local media, health officials decided to act under the standards of the National Contingency Plan for Monkeypox, which indicates that the disease should be placed at the highest emergency level when cases diagnosed in Brazil represent a risk of transmissibility for the population. Authorities warn that the country's health system does not yet have sufficient resources to immunize high-risk populations and provide treatment to a growing number of infected people. In Bolivia, the National Director of Epidemiology, Freddy Armijo, confirmed the 6th case of monkeypox virus in the country.
The 6th case of monkeypox is a 24-year-old male, Venezuelan national, living in the municipality of Santa Cruz. He does not present any underlying disease. With this case, we have 6 confirmed cases of monkeypox.
And more news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Anti-government protesters in Sierra Leone clashed with police in the streets of the capital on Wednesday, leaving 2 people dead and dozens injured as tensions over the rising cost of living turned deadly in the West African nation. The protesters were calling for the departure of President Julius Maada Bio, who was elected in 2019 and still has 10 months left in his term. Demonstrators chanted "Bio must go" as they made their way through the capital, Freetown. Vice President Mohamed Julde Jallow said in a national broadcast that the lives of both policemen and civilians were lost, without giving further details. He also announced a nationwide curfew from 3 p.m. local time in a bid to stem the violence. The government has criticized the unidentified organizers of the protests, warning that the country already has suffered enough through more than a decade of civil war that ended in 2002. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, an armed attack on a prison left 2 policemen dead and more than 800 inmates escaped. According to police authorities in Butembo City, a group of allied democratic forces attacked the Kakwangura urban prison in the east of the country. A prison search requesting anonymity said that out of the 872 people held in the compound, only 49 remain. Officials also said that one of the attackers was killed during the raid. The Allied Democratic Forces, considered to be the branch of the Islamic State in Central Africa, are accused of killing thousands of civilians in the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
The attackers came at 2 o'clock. They were Allied Democratic Forces. Bullets rang out while we were fast asleep. Suddenly we woke up. The assailants had a chainsaw with which they tore off the padlocks.
Nigeria's government officials reported Wednesday that the nation has brought home around 12,000 people despite instability. The officials said improved security had prompted their return to Shamfida village in Katsina state near the Nigerian border, but criminal gangs known locally as bandits continue to terrorize communities in the wider region despite military operations against them. JBS political administrator Bashir Sabiu said more than 8,000 people boarded buses outside a makeshift camp at a public school in Jibia to go home to Shimfida after fleeing months earlier following raids by bandits. More than 4,000 were being brought home to the same village from Maradi in Niger. Over the past 2 years, violence has displaced almost 1 million people in northwest and central Nigeria, while an additional 80,000 have fled across the border to Niger. In Greece, authorities are searching for dozens of migrants who were shipwrecked near the island of Karpathos in the southeastern Aegean Sea while trying to reach Europe. According to a statement issued by the Coast Guard, the rescue operation was ordered on Wednesday at dawn after being informed of the shipwreck. The team said that search and rescue efforts are continuing, involving 4 boats, 2 Coast Guard patrol boats, and a helicopter of the Greek Air Force. The team reported that these efforts have been difficult due to strong winds of 40 to 50 kilometers per hour. It was also detailed that so far 29 people, Afghans, Iraqis, and Iranians, have already been rescued. According to local media, between 20 and 50 more people were on the ship that sank. The ship had sailed from the Turkish city of Antalya in the south of the country and was bound for Italy. In Syria, the Ministry of Oil and Mineral Resources informed that more than 80% of the oil produced daily by the nation is plundered by the regular military forces of the United States and mercenaries at the service. The Minister of the area, Bazam Tome, detailed that the country produces an average of 80,000 barrels of crude oil daily, of which some 66,000 leave the country in U.S. vehicles bound for Iraq. The policy of systematic plundering has resulted in 235 industry workers killed in defense of their country's interests, 46 wounded, 112 kidnapped, as well as material losses to the tune of $105 billion since the beginning of the war unleashed by Washington against the Arab Republic. A fire in Ukraine caused by an ammonia leak was reported after a new shelling by Kiev troops on a factory in Donetsk. According to information provided by the Territorial Defense Department of the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic, the fire affected at least 2 kilometers from the premises of a brewery. Authorities of Donetsk and Lugansk denounced the constant shelling and siege of the Donbas region by the Ukrainian armed forces. TeleSUR English continues to grow its signal now reaches Europe. You can order from your cable dealer, tune it yourself. These parameters that you see on screen are in place since July 1st, and quite soon further changes will be implemented for the signals in the Middle East and Africa. Now more than ever, the world connects to us and our stories are heard in other faraway nations. This news multi-platform will continue providing truthful content to oppose the hegemonic media's narrative and our faithfulness to our audience. And we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.